All right. Some of you are new to sales and some are experienced sales agents, but are new to Freedom Forever, and some have experience with Freedom Forever. We wanted to start out by welcoming you all to the team. For those that don't know me, my name is David Goodstein, and today we'll be going over the pre-submission due diligence guidebook. Now, we understand starting a new venture can be complicated and overwhelming. So to ease the strain and streamline the process, and because of all the options available and their complexities, we created a structured, step-by-step, comprehensive guidebook. It's designed to set you up for success from the very beginning. It should be used as an everyday point of reference, and it will come in handy when you're creating the proposals. Now, you must understand, we are in a very unique position where we can offer the customer a myriad of options and flexibility. The customer has a choice. They can pay cash, finance, or lease the system. Now, if we're talking about financing, we have 75 different loan products to choose from. And with leasing, we work with 5 different leasing companies that all have their own leasing products and have their own guidelines and procedures. In addition, we offer many different equipment options and services that are available to the customer. The advantage is that we're not offering a one-size-fits-all option. Each deal is customized to fit the customer's needs, wants, and comfort level. Basically, we're offering something to everyone rather than trying to shoehorn a deal just to make a sale. We want you to approach it as you being the advocate for the customer, selling the idea of solar and letting the customer sell themselves on which product and options to choose. Now, once you set the appointment, it's now time to create your proposals. Where possible, we want you to create 2 starting point proposals, one each for a lease, if available, in the customer's area, and another for purchase. Creating proposals takes time. You must create the baseline proposals ahead of the appointment because of the time they take to create, and because you want to be prepared ahead of time and have a basic understanding of what it is you're talking about. You will find out their needs, wants, and comfort level on the presentation call by asking your probing questions. That information will determine which proposal to demonstrate first, then use the other one as a counterbalance, allowing the customers to sell themselves, because they can now make an educated decision based off the pros and cons of each option you presented and explained. Now, at this point, you already set the appointment with the customer and should have received the basic information. You filled out the web form, and you should have found out that the customer owns the house, what type of home it is, who their utility company is, how much their average utility bill is, what type of roof they have, what the shading situation is, and whether or not they're married, and how much their combined taxable income is. You're also going to find out what the credit is and any other specific information that the customer shared with you. So all you have is a basic understanding and information that they provided you up until this point. And now it's time for you to do your due diligence before the presentation occurs. So doing the initial extra work is going to save you twice the amount of work later on. As they say, measure twice, cut once. More importantly, you're going to create credibility and trust with the customer when it comes time for the presentation, because they're going to appreciate you being professional and taking the extra time and being prepared. From the customer's perspective, it's like buying a car. You have your baseline model, then you choose all the options and upgrades, from the options available to you, and then decide how to pay for it. Are you paying cash? Are you financing it? Or are you leasing it? If you're financing it, what are the loans and terms? And if they're leasing, what options and what terms? You have to know what options they qualify in order to present the pros and cons of each option, and then be prepared to answer the questions and concerns that they have. Because all the different options and because of all the different options and complexities, it's virtually impossible to do that competently without this guidebook. And I'll show you that in a little bit. The guide is going to provide you with all the information you're going to need to do the due diligence necessary to prepare for the presentation. As you go through the following steps, you're going to make sure to enter the information into the worksheet that's built into the system. I know when you look at this guide, you're going to say to yourself, seriously, 91 pages long? The hell are they thinking? I get it. Trust me. I spent hundreds of hours creating it, so I know what's in it. I know it seems overwhelming. The majority of it is all spreadsheets. It's not, most of it's not reading. All right. It's there to, it's there for your convenience as a reference book. I know it doesn't make a lot of difference, but it's actually 89 pages long if you take out the coverage or the cover and the index pages. So I'm going to show you why it's necessary, why this guidebook was necessary. I'm briefly going to break away from the guide to show you the resource center in the Freedom portal. All right, so if you navigate over to the Freedom portal, on the left-hand side, you're going to see a number of navigation options. To access the training documents, you're going to choose the Sales Resource Center. Now, as you can see, there are many, many folders to choose from. Each one of these folders have subfolders that may also have sub-subfolders. If you total it out, there's over 500 documents in all. As you can see, it's very convoluted and hard to navigate, let alone find exactly what you're looking for. If you didn't have this guidebook, you're going to spend a considerable amount of time getting the answers to the most basic things. For example, let's say I wanted to know what leasing options my customer qualifies for. Well, to do that, you must first figure out if the leasing company even operates in that state. Then find out if they work with customer's utility company. Now, remember, we have 5 different leasing companies that we work with. Therefore, you're going to have to follow this process that I'm about to demonstrate for all 5. So if I started out with Everbright, I'll find the finance and payment options folder, open it up, find Everbright, open it up, and then I'd have to find where the active utility companies are. If I open that, let's say the customer lived in Colorado. Well, I'd have to scroll down here to find Colorado and then find what utility company they had. Well, if it's not mentioned here, then Everbright doesn't work with that utility company, and therefore the customer, it's not an option for the customer. So to take it a step further, if I wanted to find out what products the customer qualifies for, I would have to open each one of these folders to find specifically what they qualify for and go through the documents with a fine-tooth comb to do it. Then I would have to repeat the same process for the other 4 leasing companies, which takes a lot of time. So you can see how archaic it actually is. So to alleviate that, we condense the main components of all of these folders and documents into this one guidebook. So you don't have to mess with it. As a disclaimer, this guidebook is not definitive because things are constantly changing. In addition, if you're looking for something specific and want to drill down and acquire additional information, we took all of these documents in all of these training folders and uploaded them into our own document and video library. So you have access for it. They're all arranged and cataloged to make it easier for you to find and navigate it easily. You'll be able to find it in your CRM in the dialer, along with this guidebook and other training documents and videos. So this guidebook is actually a living, breathing document, meaning as changes and improvements are made, the document is going to be updated on a regular basis. Therefore, please don't waste your time and ink printing this out. You have access to it, so you don't have to do it. All right. We don't, every time a change is made and we create an upgrade to the document, we don't want you printing out 91 pages each and every time that happens. All right. Even though we included a lot of this information in the sales script, the PowerPoint presentation, and worksheets, you're still going to need this and use this guide on a daily basis as a reference. All right, now that we got that out of the way, I'm going to walk you through this guide and then afterwards use a real life example to demonstrate how to use it. I mentioned earlier, it's like buying a car. The guide tells you what the purchase or leasing company options are available and what qualifications requirements are for each company, what the baseline model looks like, what equipment is available, and what options, what additional options and equipment is available, and what cost and terms they are. All right, so going to the document, you can see the first page is the cover page. Here's the index. As you can see, it's very detailed. It's designed to be a quick reference for you to use. It's going to save you a lot of time as you can just look up the topic, get to where you're looking for, rather than searching the entire document, wasting valuable time. Right. So you'll see in yellow, these are highlighted. Those are the 11 steps that you're going to go through for the due diligence at the end of the day. All right. So if we go to page 1, we have the introductions, basically everything I just said, so you could review it at your own time. All right. Here are the 11 steps for the due diligence. The first step is the sales lookup. So what you're going to do is navigate back to the Freedom Portal, and on the left-hand side, you're going to push Sales Lookup. And what that's going to do is it's going to tell you if it's in the Freedom coverage area in total, what options are available to the customer, if there's a distance adder, which we'll talk about later on, if Safe Street eligible, and what the requirements are. All right. You're going to start out by putting in the zip code, select the city, and then select the utility company that the customer has. What you're then going to do, you're going to copy and paste this. Now, you're going to post it in the CRM. All right. At this point, you filled out a web form. So you're going to go, keep in mind that your screen is going to look a lot different than mine. So you're going to go to your appointment report and you're going to put in the date range. All right. So if I did that and I went back, say, to the 25th, and today's date, I'm going to hit go. And it's going to populate all of the submissions in that time. Once it populates, you're going to look for the correct name, and then you're going to go over to the phone number and you're going to press the phone number. All right. It's going to highlight. The first thing you're going to see is the web form that you filled out. All right. When you spoke to the customer, when you did the appointment setting call. All right. If you filled it out correctly, all the information will populate. All right. You're going to paste what you just copied from the sales lookup tool in Freedom Forever's portal, and you're going to paste it here. And that's going to become important for you to have later on to see what options are available to this customer. I'm going to demonstrate it later on when I do a real life example. All right. The coverage area determines which options are available by state. So if we go back to the presentation, or the, sorry. You're going to find out what state it is that the customer lives in. And then it's going to show you what options are available to this customer by state. So let's say the customer lived in Florida. All right. These are the companies that are listed. So you can see Enfin does Florida, Everbright does not. Sunrun works in Florida, as does Sonova. All right. So if we go to, we're using Florida, let's say the customer had Florida Power and Light. Well, we're going to scroll down here and we're going to look for Florida on the left-hand side, look at the list of utilities, and then we're going to see Florida Power and Light, and it shows, yes, it's Mosaic. We can do purchase, Enfin. As I said, Everbright does not work in Florida. Sunrun is eligible. Sonova is eligible. And then we're also looking for if there's a max limit to the solar offset regarding the build out of the system. Some utility companies, for instance, this one, Duke in Florida, limits you to 100%, whereas other companies can go as high as 120%. So on this one, you can see in Massachusetts, Eversource, if it was a lease, they limit it to 110%. If it was a purchase, 120%. All right. And then it tells you whether it's available. What type of lease is it? Is it a PPA or is it a lease? You'll find that on the right-hand side. So for instance, Jackson Electric Corp is both a PPA and a lease option is both available. All right. So you can see that this section here actually makes up 15 pages of the total just for the utility companies. All right. I'm not going to go through this entire thing. The next section is cash. If somebody's doing cash, this is the information for Paykeeper, which is the escrow company that is needed to do a cash transaction. All right. The next section is the loans. Choose a product. All right. Mosaic is our financing company. It may seem complicated, but it's really simple. As I said earlier, we want to offer a variety of flexible financing options to the customer in order to fit their needs. There's basically 4 factors to consider when deciding the type of loan: the length of the loan, the interest rate, the buy down fees, and how the incentives are used and applied. When it comes down to it, there's only 4 loan packages spread out over 75 different products. All these loan products have their advantages and disadvantages. It really depends on what they're looking to do and what their goals are. Once we figure out the type of loan, then we can discuss the options. The first option is the regular solar loan. All right, that's called Choice at the moment. It's going to have a fixed interest rate. All right. The second is designed to incorporate home improvements. So if somebody wanted to do a re-roof or they wanted to put a pool in or something like that, they can incorporate that amount of money that they're going to need into the solar loan. All right. Next, we have 2 promotional loans. One is an interest-only loan, and where you only pay Just for the first 18 months, you're not paying principal. So it's a low payment for the first 18 months. After the 18 months, the loan adjusts to a higher payment. And the fourth one, there is no payment or interest for the first 12 months. After 12 months, the payment adjusts. Ideally, it's for homeowners who are unsure of their cash flow situation for the near future. All right. Um, you're going to notice when we talk about the rate cards that the higher the interest rate, the lower the buy down, or what they call the dealer fees. These fees get added to the back end of the loan. So if we go down to the rate deck, by the way, these are all requirements that are there, different types of loans. So if we go to the rate deck, for example, you'll see a 399 APR, which at the moment is the lowest interest rate. Please note that is an artificial interest rate. In order to get that interest rate that low, they're actually buying down the interest rate and putting that extra cost on the back end of the loan. Whereas if you see an 11.59 interest rate, there is no dealer fee. So how does that look in plain English? Let's say, for argument's sake, the system costs $30,000, meaning they're financing $30,000. Well, using the 399 interest rate with a 39.99 dealer fee, the dealer fee is going to be 39.99 times 30,000, which comes out to an additional $11,997 that they would add onto the initial $30,000 loan, meaning that they're financing $41,997. Whereas if they have the 11.59 interest rate with no dealer fee, they're only financing the $30,000. So in this case, they're going to have less to finance, but the monthly payment is going to be higher. The trade-off is spending a little bit more money per month, but it's going to result in an $11,997 difference overall. Keep in mind, these are flex loans. So they can pay more each month to pay down the principal without any prepayment penalty, meaning they could elect to add additional money to their payment. So if their payment was, say, $300 a month, they could pay $350. The $50 extra is not penalized. It just gets taken off the back end of the loan. Or if they come into some cash, they get a few years down the road, they come into some money, maybe it's a tax refund or something like that. They can apply it to the back end of the loan, and it brings down the entire cost of the financing. So that's what we're talking about, flex loans. Again, if they're looking for the lowest cost of ownership and paying it off early, the higher interest rates are the way to go. If they're looking for the lowest monthly payment, then the lower interest rate option is best. Just keep in mind what they're trading off, higher overall cost to do that. All right. The next thing to consider is the length of the loan. Most people pay off their loan within 7 to 10 years. The way they do that is, as I just mentioned earlier, applying additional money to the minimum payment and putting it back into the loan. So if the goal is to pay it off faster, the shorter loan terms are best. Again, the monthly payment will be higher, but they will pay off the loan faster and realize the overall savings sooner, saving even more valuable time and money. So when you're discussing financing, please stick to the script. There's many reasons why we want you to stick to the script. The main reason is that when we do the welcome call, they're going to be going all over these items with the customer to prevent any notion of fraud. And they're going to ask them if the information was gone over with and if they understood it. So it's to your best interest to stick to the script, and we'll talk about that on that training video. So moving forward, these are all the different rate decks for the different products. You'll notice that there's different products for different states. So this in Illinois, Massachusetts, Maine, New Jersey, and Ohio. These would be the rate decks for those states. All the other states are above. Right, you'll notice that there's also another one from Minnesota. So that's the rate deck from Minnesota. All right. Now, SHRECs. What SHRECs are, for those that don't know, are state renewable energy credits. Now, they're only available at the moment in 7 states, which are Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. Now, these are state incentives in addition to the federal tax credits that they're getting on the purchase. Now, what they're doing is incentivizing homeowners to switch to solar by paying them per kilowatt hour that's produced by solar. So, for example, if you had a 10 kilowatt system and lived in Pennsylvania, you'll notice that in Pennsylvania, they're getting $40 for every kilowatt that's produced. So if they produce 10 kilowatts, they would be getting $400 every time 10 kilowatts is produced. And the customer is able to put that money right into their pocket. They're separate from the electricity itself and are paid out on a quarterly basis in most cases. All right, the next section we're talking about is how to avoid the fraud and compliance issues. You're going to want to take a look at that. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. As I said, you could read it yourself. Basically, it's the compliance issues that will protect the customer. Typically, salespeople get in trouble because they lied, misrepresented, or did not disclose certain information. For example, salesperson did the presentation in Spanish to a Spanish-speaking customer, but had the customer sign the agreement or the contract in English. They frown on those kind of things. Or the customer was promised something and found out later it was not in the contract. All right. Okay, so earlier we had the guidelines and requirements for purchase and financing. Now we have the requirements for leasing. So reasons to go leasing. It's not a single family residence. Customer has combined household income of less than 40,000. They can't take advantage of the tax incentives. Their age, maybe they're 75 or older. They don't pay enough in taxes to offset the write-off. They're never going to realize the savings or economic benefit at the end of the financing period, or they're not going to outlive it. They're selling their house within 3 to 5 years, or the customer is just interested in a lower payment on a monthly basis. It's a short-term savings, kind of like leasing a car, right? If you financed a car and purchased it, you're going to have a higher payment at the end of the payments. You're going to own the car outright. Whereas with a lease, you trade it in, the lease is over, you get a new car or a new lease, or you have the option to purchase it outright. All right, so we go through all the different terms. We go through the different leasing companies, the different leasing products, the difference between a PPA and a lease. You need to know that. First of all, TPO stands for third party owned, right? Now that may be a lease or a PPA, depending on the state is going to determine whether it's a PPA or a lease. So you got to know the difference between a PPA and a lease. So with a PPA, the customer agrees to purchase the electricity produced by the solar system. The customer pays a fixed rate for a predetermined amount of electricity. Whereas with a lease, the customer rents the solar equipment. The lease outlines how much power the system is going to produce, and the customer pays a monthly payment for the use of their equipment. The monthly payment is based on the expected kilowatt hour rate of the electricity produced. Generally, the product is state specific, as I just mentioned. Certain states forbid PPAs, others forbid leases. Now, the advantages of a lease versus finance, the lease will have a lower monthly payment at a predictable rate. There is no financial obligation. There's no loan or debt. The lease is assumable, so if they sell their property, the new owner takes over the lease. There's free maintenance on the lease for the life of the lease. There's no responsibility that comes with a purchase. So if something goes wrong on a purchase, the customer is responsible for it. All right. With a lease, there's no extra insurance required. They can choose to purchase the system at any time after 5 or 6 years, depending on the leasing company. If they choose not to purchase it before the 25-year lease is over, they'll have an option to lease a new system or purchase the existing one. And there's no lien on the house. The drawbacks are threefold. They don't own the system, therefore they're always going to have a lease payment. Where with a purchase, once the panels are paid off, there's going to be little or no electric bill forever. There is no tax incentive, rebates, or renewable energy credits that the federal, state, or local governments may offer. Those tax incentives and rebates belong to the leasing company, not the customer. Right? So the customer cannot take advantage of those. If the other drawback is if they ever decide to upgrade the system, getting additional equipment or something like that, they cannot do that. They are stuck with the equipment that they have. All right, that's a major point of contention. All right. As I said, there's 5 different leasing companies. We have Enfin. Enfin is owned by Q Cells. At the moment, they only install in California and Florida at the moment. They're going to be starting in Texas very soon, as of the time and date of this recording. Everbright is owned by NextEra Energy. If you live in Florida, you're familiar with FP&L. That's the same company. NextEra owns FP&L and other utilities around the country. We have GoodLeap. Right now, GoodLeap is only in Texas at the moment, soon to be in Florida and California, and then in the next couple of weeks or so. And moving forward, they're going to be expanding into other states and areas. We just rolled out GoodLeap, or Freedom did, so they want to manage it accordingly. All right, they don't want to take on too much. All right, we have Sunnova, which is the second largest leasing company in the U.S. And then we have Sunrun, which is the largest in the U.S. All right, we then have the requirements and qualifications for each leasing company. All right, you can see all the different leasing companies here. Then we have Mosaic, which is the finance side of it. So you can see what the qualifications are. Again, it takes up a few pages. All right. So basically what we're doing at this point is, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. It's pretty cut and dry. The objective at this point is to filter down what options are available for the customer. If the situation does not meet with all of the requirements for the leasing company, obviously that company would not be an option available for the customer. All right. We then go into the equipment, and it spells out what is the basic equipment for each company. So if it's a cash or finance deal, Silfab 430s are the basic solar panels that come with the system. If they want to upgrade, obviously that's an extra cost, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. Enfin, as I said, is owned by Q Cells, therefore they use Q Cells as their baseline model. Everbright uses Silfab, GoodLeap, and Sunrun uses Silfab, and Sunnova uses Q Cells. Solar Edge is the baseline inverter. And now we're going to talk about batteries. It's all pretty much self-explanatory. There is a storage guide tool in the Freedom portal. If they check off the boxes, you're going to be seeing determine which appliances that may be backed up in the event of a grid outage. It's going to tell you how many batteries are needed to power up all those different appliances. When building a system with batteries, after filling out the storage guide, you're going to want to take a screenshot of that, and you're going to want to save it for later when you submit the deal. All right. They want to be able to see how many batteries are covering what appliances. So therefore, that's why the screenshot is important. All right. We go into the different uses for the batteries. There's 3 types of battery uses. We have the backup, the time of use shifting, and then self-consumption. Now, you got to note that some batteries need to be matched up with different types of inverters with the same brand name of the batteries. All right. For instance, Solar Edge will use a Solar Edge inverter. All right. So for the backup type, the battery will store energy produced by the solar panels when the customer In this configuration, the home solar panels will charge the batteries to full power, and then the batteries will wait to discharge until there's a power outage. The battery will give the customers approximately 8 to 12 hours of backup power, depending on the usage, and then be recharged by the sun the next day. Time of use shifting, the battery intelligently charges and discharges the batteries based on energy usage, time of day, and peak rate hours. There are certain states where this is important. This allows the customers to store the energy when it's cheap and sell energy back to the grid when it's expensive, providing an benefit to the customer. Additionally, the batteries will keep minimum reserve in case of power outage. And then we have the self-consumption usage. Now, in this configuration, customers will consume all the solar panel that their system produces. No power will be exported to the grid. Solar panels will charge the batteries to full, and then the batteries will discharge whenever the customer is using more power than the panels produced, such as at night. In this setup, batteries will keep a minimum charge just in case of a power outage. Now, you may want to use this in certain states that allow for it, or certain utility companies that allow for it. There is a list of those utility companies. If the utility company is not listed, you cannot use this in a self-consumption format. We then go through ground mounts. This is, first of all, this is the list of the different states and different utility companies that allow for self-consumption. So if they're not in these states and don't have these utility companies, self-consumption is not an option, only backup. Right, or time of use shifting. We go into the Powerwall from Tesla. Self-storage consumption, it explains it here. And the battery sizing explains it here. We go into ground mounts. It's pretty self-explanatory. We go through the main panel upgrade, how it works, and why it's important. We then go to, we want you to look up the property on Zillow. You're going to follow the link to see what the house looks like ahead of time. If it's going to contain all the information that you're going to need to do your due diligence, please add it to the worksheet, and we'll explain that later. It's going to save you a whole lot of time. You're going to see what type of house it is, whether it's a single-family residence, townhouse, condo, mobile home, manufactured home, etc. Just by looking at it, as well as what it categorizes it at. The year the house was built, the square footage of the house, the kind of heating, electric or gas, the cooling, does the house have a pool or jacuzzi, what the roof type is, and the last date it was sold. Note that if you can't find a good image overhead on Zillow, then use Google Maps to get a better image. We'll need to see the overhead view to be able to count how many roof panes there are, and again, what type of roof they have. What kind of, is it composite shingle? Is it clay, tile? What kind of roof it is? All right, very, very, very important when it comes time for the adders. All right, note that both Zillow and Google Maps are at best 85% accurate. We don't know when the image was taken. Or if it's even the correct house. All right. I've been in a situation before where I was actually selling appointments, and sent an appointment to a client of mine. He looked at the satellite image and determined that it was not a good lead. Well, he never bothered to read the notes that came along with it. If he had specifically mentioned in the notes that if you look at a satellite image, the house is under a canopy of trees. None of those trees are there as they were knocked out by Hurricane Sandy. Well, I gave that same appointment a different client. It was a little bit out of his coverage area. I said, please take this. And he did, and called me a few days later and thanked me profusely because it was a 25 kilowatt system that he just sold. Don't you think I called my original client back and told him what an idiot he was for cutting his nose to spite his face to save a few pennies? It cost him over 40 grand in commissions. All right. So don't always go by what the Google Maps or Zillow says. All right. The next step is the county appraiser. We want to know who is listed on title ahead of time. The last thing that we want to do is go through the entire presentation, sell the deal, and then find out that the person that we spoke to is not the person on title. We then have to repitch that deal to the person who is on title, and it creates an entire mess, creating a lot of wasted time and energy for everybody involved. So this is one of the reasons why we want to do our due diligence. In this case, finding out who is on title. Right? We don't want to jump through hoops just for the sake of doing it and find out that the information that we had was incorrect. All right. The next step is we want to, once we go through the Zillow and the county appraiser, we want to know what companies still meet with all the qualifications, what options are still available after checking the county appraiser's website and finding out who's the registered owner is. We want to know what options are still available for this customer. The next is the adder sheet. Now, these are extra costs for options that are added to the baseline model. Again, think of it as buying a car. They have the base model, then they have the options that are available, and each option adds to the price. Example, if you were buying a car, instead of roll-up windows, you wanted power windows. All right, there's an extra. It's important to get the adders correct, because if you get it wrong, the cost is going to come out of your commission if the customer refuses to pay for it. All right. So we want to, again, measure twice, cut once. All right. And then the last step, here are all the adders and what the costs are. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. They're pretty much self-explanatory. All right, they're all in order. Next step is we want to do a Google search on their utility companies. We're searching for articles that talk about rate increases for the utility companies. We're going to use that to demonstrate what's happening on a local level and build more pain when talking to the customer about the utility companies. It'll come in handy, I promise, when you're doing the presentation. And I'll show that to you later on. Next step is creating the baseline proposals. To create the baseline proposal, electric bills are not needed per se. It'll be nice in a perfect world. However, we don't live in a perfect world. Therefore, the idea is to get in front of the customer and sell them on the idea of solar, rather than waiting until they give you the electric bill. Because if you wait for them to send you an electric bill, you're going to be waiting a very long time if they send it to you at all. Sometimes you got to give to get. Basically, what you're doing is asking someone to jump through hoops and go on a scavenger hunt before they even know what this is truly about, what's involved in it, etc. So when we talk about the presentation itself, the presentation is broken up into three different parts. The first part is the presentation itself. All right. It's just intended to provide enough information and show why the electric bill is needed before you can actually go into the close of it and discuss financing. All right. If they send it to you before or during the presentation, you're going to continue on to the close and talk about financing. If not, you're going to have to wait until they send it to you to complete the closing portion of the presentation. All right. We talked about panel placement and offset. The goal is to get to 100%. Shoot for 85% or higher offset, assuming you're maxed out with the number of panels you can place on the roof to add to the offset. You can upgrade to a different type of panel. For example, going from, say, Q-Cells 410 to Silfab 430s. All right. Sometimes you can get enough offset from the larger panels to get what you're after. All right. All right, the next section is Safe Streets. Safe Street package. Again, if the customer is eligible, if they're in the installation zone for Safe Streets, they're going to get a free home security and smart home for the first 12 months with no cost for the installation. After the first 12 months, there's going to be a monthly fee if they choose to continue. All right. There's two requirements. A, they must be in the coverage zone. So you're going to check with the sales lookup in the Freedom portal. That's going to tell you whether this customer is eligible or not for Safe Streets, if it's in their coverage area. All right. And they must not have ADT as their monitoring company if they have home security presently or not. All right. With Safe Street is actually doing the installation. ADT is doing the monitoring, and they're partnered with Google for Google is how the system is hooked up. All right, how they can monitor it from their phone. All right, there's three different packages. The first one is completely free. This tells you what's included with those packages. The second one, there's an adder that you're going to include in the cost. You're basically building it into the cost of the loan. And then the third one is a larger adder. Obviously, there's different price points after the first 12 months. The first package is $6 per month. The second is $64 per month, etc. All right. We go into frequently asked questions about freedom. All right, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with those. As far as Safe Streets, you're going to want to include it in all of your sales if they're eligible. And the reason being is Freedom did a lot of research on this. And what they found was that installations almost double compared to solar sales without the system. In other words, you can get the solar sale, but the installation doesn't happen. What they're saying is that with the Safe Streets, the installation rate doubles with Safe Streets than without Safe Streets. So it's to your advantage. All right. So this next section is how to enter leads, and create the proposals. Each company has its own way of doing things. Now, some of them will be through the Freedom Portal, other with the company's portal. This gives you a step-by-step direction for each company. So the first column is Freedom. The second column is Enfin. The third column is Everbright, GoodLeap, Sunrun, and Sonova. All right, they're step by step. If without this, you would have to go into the sales resource center and pull up the documents for each and go through the step-by-step guide for each one. Here we list them all in one place. All right. The next section is the contacts, different contact numbers and emails that you're going to need. All right, and they're all listed here. All right. We also included the red lines, so you have them handy in one place. All right. They're going to come in handy for you when it comes to price out these deals. You're going to want to know what the commission is. Last thing you want to do is screw up. In other words, with and we have certain solar math with this. All right. And the reason for that is with a purchase, it's one way. With the adders, they're included in the cost. Where with leasing product or TPO products, it's the exact opposite, meaning that we have to come with a baseline price and then we have to add to it per kilowatt, the per kilowatt price based off of what the adders are. So with the purchase, the adders are included. With leases or TPOs, they are not included. All right. So you have to use this solar math to do it. It spells out how to do it. And we'll certainly talk about that in detail in a later video. And then we have the red lines. All right. So your commission is based off of anything you sell it above these red lines. So you want to be careful. Again, if you don't have the adders correct, it's going to eat into your commission. I can't say that enough. And then we have the contacts, as I just mentioned. All right. And that's pretty much it. Again, 89 pages if you take out the cover page and the indexing page. All right, so let's give you a real life example now that we've gone through the guide. It's time to demonstrate how this actually works in real life. All right, once again, your screen is going to look a lot different than mine. We're just going to follow it step by step. Once again, you're going to go into your CRM and you're going to find the correct customer. You're going to open it up. It's going to list the web form information that you filled out previously, right? And then you're just going to follow it step by step. So the first step, again, is going to the sales lookup tool in the Freedom Forever portal. You're going to put in the zip code, the utility company, and the state. All right. Next, you're going to determine what options are available by utility company and state. For the purposes of convenience, I combine both steps into one. All right. In the system itself, in the worksheet, which it's going to auto-populate what you have listed in the electric company here. So it's automatically going to populate. It's going to show you what leasing companies are available for this utility company. and it'll also list all the utility companies for that state. All right, so it's going to auto populate here for you. All right, you're then going to you're going to determine which remaining companies meet all the qualifications. And again, what we're doing is we're just drilling down. We're going through a funnel and just funneling it down. We're going to go to Zillow, and I'm going to plug in the address. All right. As you can see here on the left-hand side, it's going to tell me everything I really need to know. It's 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,300 square foot house. This is what the house looks like. Again, we don't know when this picture was taken. I actually do, because I know these people very well. They're actually good friends of mine. All right. With this particular one, they don't have it. I can't get in on the overhead view, so I can't look at how the roof works or looks, right? So what I'm going to do is go into Google Maps. I'm going to plug in the address, and it's going to populate. And this is what the roof looks like. Now, here's another case where the satellite image does not match real time. Now, the reason I know that, this picture is probably 2 years old, because the neighbors over here to the right had solar put on about 2 years ago. All right. Now, the other thing is none of these trees are here. They were all cut down for the purpose of getting solar. So these trees here don't exist. These trees here don't exist. Therefore, the shadows that you see are not shadows in real life, right? So this roof is actually a good roof for solar. It gets a lot of sunlight, whereas in this picture, there's no way to put enough panels to power this house. Right? The other thing you want to do is you want to be able to count how many roof panes there are that you could put solar panels on. So in this case, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, if you look at your adders, 2 are automatically included for free. So if you're putting panels on all the available panes, you would subtract 2 from 7. So you would put 5 panel or panes on the adder sheet. If that, I know it doesn't make sense to you now, but it will later on. All right. So it's really important that you do that. So let's go back to our worksheet here. And we're just going to fill in the blanks. All right. So Zillow, we're just going to copy the information: type of house, single family residence, the home value. All right. It says that the house is worth about $369 or $369,000. All right. The year of bill. Well, shit. I just got out of it. Well, I know that this house was built in 1989. All right. Gives you all the information that you're going to need. So you're basically just copying this information. All right. Um, All right, so you can see all the details here. All right, if you want to know more facts and figures, there's options for you to drill down even further. All right, so next section we're going to look at is we're going to go to the property appraisers. So basically, you want to put in whatever county it is, property appraiser in Google, and then you're going to get the property appraiser in that specific county. You're going to do a property search, put in the either by address or by customer's name. It's going to populate it for you. All right, you could actually open this up and see what's listed for this. Now, you may see a sales price of $100. Typically, what that means is that it was quick claimed or it was refinanced. In this case, I know it was refinanced. I got a reverse mortgage on this house. You can see what the owner's name is. If you highlight this, you can open this up and it'll give you all the owners. All right, I know that Dennis is the husband. Linda is the wife. She's also on title on this specific house. All right, the last sale date was 6/1/22. That's actually when they refinanced the house and got the reverse mortgage. All right, you can see how long they lived in the house, etc. All right, if you open up the detailed image. So going back to the worksheet, we're now going to fill out what remaining companies meet all the qualifications. All right, you're just going to hit yes, no, yes, no, yes, no for each company. All right, in this case, I know that they meet all the qualifications except for ENFIN because ENFIN doesn't work in Florida and does not work with Florida Power and Light, even though they own the company. It's pretty crazy. They don't want to compete against themselves, I guess. All right. You're then going to fill out the adder sheet if you know what it is. All right. As I said earlier, there was 7 roof panes. So that's the first thing that we want to do is put in for the roof panes. All right. Multiple roof panes. You're going to refer back to the adder sheet and you're going to put in whatever amount it is. I think it's 150 per roof pane, 150 times 5. Put in that amount here. All right. They have composite shingle roof, so there's nothing there. They don't need MPU. They're not going to get batteries. They're not getting a panel upgrade, inverter upgrade. What they do is have the HOA policy in Florida. All Florida deals require it. It's $150. And in the system, it'll total out the total cost for you. So you know what to expect. So when you're doing the proposal, you have it all ready to go ahead of time. All right. As I said earlier, we're going to do a search in Google, Florida Power and Light rate increases. And it's going to list all the different things. Bill could grant Florida Public Service Commission more power, less accountability. Florida Power and Light bills to increase. Rate hikes approved, blah, 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 blah. You can go right down the list. In this case, what we want to do is just copy and paste the link and put it in here. So you can go back to it when the time comes to do the presentation. You can show the customer what you see. All right. That's pretty much it. Again, the guide was more or less intended to walk you through the process, enabling you to do your due diligence and dirty work, gathering all the information necessary to get to the next step, creating the proposal. once you create the appointment, it's a good idea to stop what you're doing and create the worksheets and go through this process. It breaks up the monotony. The last thing you want to do is to stack these and do them all at once. It's just too much. All right. So my advice is if you get an appointment, immediately stop what you're doing and go through this process. As for creating the proposals, you may want to create the leads, build out the system, and create the proposals ahead of time before the appointment so that you are prepared and know what to expect and have an idea as to what direction you want to go in ahead of time. All right. That said, it's a good idea not to use your pre-built proposals when you're doing it live, but rather create them from scratch when doing the presentation with the customer. You want to show how you got there, not just populate all the information. You want to do it step by step with them so they see the process, how it's done, etc. Again, it goes back to credibility. In my opinion, you can do what you want. I'm just telling you what my advice is. All right, so please let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Maybe you have some violent reactions. Who knows? I'm going to be more than happy to address any issues that you may have. And please don't be shy. All right. Until the next time we do one of these training sessions, enjoy the rest of your day. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, everybody.